What is your message to people? Be perfect? Like, is that the message you want your audience to hear? Is like, be perfect? Well, but like, you're living it. So if your first episode is perfect, what does that teach people who are listening to you? That they can't start until they're perfect. So it's better for you to make mistakes and have crappy audio quality and you stumble and vomit on your computer or like whatever happens, right?
Something you've talked about often and is part of your brand is thought leadership.
Okay.
You help thought leaders. What is the definition of a thought leader, number one? And then number two, one of the things I've come across very often is anytime somebody is going from I'm this person to this new person, they get stuck with a lot of imposter syndrome. How can someone work through the imposter syndrome of leaning into whatever their thought leadership looks like?
I don't know that you're ever done with imposter syndrome because there's always like new mountains to climb. There's a great saying, I think it's an African proverb, but it's like, beyond the mountains, more mountains. It's like, you just keep climbing, right? You're never done. You never want to hit the top of the mountain. Like you hit a goal, it's like, oh man, that kind of sucked. What do I do next? You have like 5 seconds of happiness and then now what, right? So like beyond the mountains, more mountains. We're climbing. It's something new to go and chase down. I don't get too caught up in like definitions of things. I would say your job as a thought leader is to make people think like you think. Okay. So you see the world differently. Something happens to you and you react differently than what most people would react to. And while most people might freak out or yell or scream or whatever, you're off doing something completely different. It's like, what's this guy doing over here, right? So like you walk in somewhere, you see it differently than other people. And so your job is to help other people see what you see and elevate them and lift them up. So that's, I guess, would be my definition to look at what thought leadership is. And so then we get typically like people want to make a quality production. Like it has to be high quality. We have to have the best microphones and like what's our lighting setup. At least with podcasts, you don't necessarily have to do video, though it's great to have video because YouTube is getting into podcasting in a big way. And we're in a nice setup here, and you know Danny's awesome, my videographer here. But the most important thing with quality is quality of thought. You're a thought leader, so it's not camera quality, it's quality of thought. Like if we suck, Danny can't save us.
Right.
Awesome, you're on this like super fancy whatever, and Catherine set us up with these amazing microphones, and it's set up properly, great. But if we suck, Catherine's like, I did my job, I know you guys suck, right? If we were awesome and the mics were a little bit lower quality, it could still do well, right? So it's like people obsess over the wrong kind of quality. In thought leadership education, it's quality of thought. And I respect production quality for sure, right? It means why we're here. And if this were me by myself, we'd be with my iPhone or something, super echoey. But still, like I think just thinking, how can I be better with my quality of thought as opposed to production quality makes a big difference, especially at the beginning. Because that's a big reason why people don't take action.
Yeah.
Well, until I get my Shure microphone, like I can't, I'm like, dude, I can't do anything. I need my Shure. And you just go down this endless rabbit hole because it never ends, right? Yeah. Like, well, what lights do I need? Oh my God, I got to figure out the lights. And then what camera? And like, there's 1,000 different options of camera. And then what lens? And what are my background? I need a nice background, right? What chair am I going to sit in? Do I sit? Do I stand? It's like you just endless overthinking. And then the thing that matters the most, which is actually getting your thoughts out there to the world, like doesn't happen. And so a lot of that's because of imposter syndrome. And so the way through, I find 2 things. One is the inspiration to see others. So you see, you know that you've listened to podcasts or watched videos that have had an impact on you. And like, what if they never got started because they were insecure about whatever? Yeah. Or go watch their first episode and it's probably not like amazing. And the second is, at the end of the day, you're really just talking to, back to our previous point, Kevin from 5 years ago. So I'll do an exercise, I call it the park bench exercise, where imagine there's you from 5 years ago who's like just about to start their podcast or whatever, and you've got 10 minutes with them. Could you help that person make some real progress in those 10 minutes? It's like, probably. Like, if you had to go back to 2019 Kevin, you would have some words of wisdom that can shortcut the path to get to where you're at now, right? Yeah. Hey, Kevin, can we do that in like 6 months instead of 5 years, right? You'd have words, and you could speak to him in a way that I couldn't, because you've lived it. And inside of that 10-minute conversation, you can have a real impact. And so when I walk people through that, it's like, do you think that you could help Kevin? They all, like everybody says, yes, I could help younger me. Okay, cool. Because we're always thinking, well, I'm no Tony Robbins or I'm no whoever. Like, but you don't have to be. You can help younger you. And where are most people stuck? At step 0. Are there lots of people in the world right now who currently are younger you? Like, yes, great, talk to them. It's just these mental blocks that prevent us from, and me too. Like my first video, I opened my YouTube account in November 2008. I didn't post my video till April 2009.
I didn't know that. Walt Disney?
Yeah.
Yes.
So however many months that is, like 6 months, I had the account, I registered it, and didn't do anything. Now, it wasn't like I was obsessing every day about making content, but I'm not perfect either. But just like everybody else, the goal is to try to shortcut the path. So like, don't make the same mistakes that I made. Don't wait 6 months.
What got you off the fence? Did something happen that made you, kicked your butt into gear?
I eventually convinced my friend, Mark Drager, to film. Like I did the same thing that I tell people not to do. Like my friend Mark had a video production company, and I convinced him to come in for a day to film with me. And he spent the whole day on a Saturday or whatever, and we filmed one video, and I was super nervous and tried to memorize lines, like in a suit and tie and all this
I remember that.
Yeah. And it's just not me. I'm stressed out, and he's like getting the perfect desk, and like I don't even sit behind a desk, right? It wasn't me, but I thought it's what you were supposed to do. Right. And so I spent months convincing my friend Mark to help me do it, and he did. So luckily, he did. But if I didn't have that, I don't know. Maybe I would have spent another 2 years waiting. It's like, but so when people say, "Well, how did you do it?" Well, don't do what I did because I did it all wrong. Yeah. Do it better than me, right? The whole point of learning from somebody, having a mentor, is like you get coached on how to do it faster and better than what they did when they got started.
You just said "supposed to do."
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing to talk about, because as I've evolved as a content creator, I have shifted from I should ask this, I should do intros this way. What are you supposed to do? Like, who are you supposed to be as a content creator? The collective you, not Evan Carmichael.
I don't know. I can only answer for Evan Carmichael. Like,
all right, who's Evan Carmichael supposed to be?
My intent is to serve. So like, how can I bring the most value to whoever I'm talking to right now? Earlier on, we were asking about how to show up. I forget what your question was, and I clarified, like as the host or as the guest, yes. Right? Because as a guest, I just want to help. Like, what are we talking about? I mean, hopefully I can talk about something that's going to be valuable to you, but somebody earlier today asked me, what's the question that you wish that you would get asked? Like, the one that you care the most about. Yeah. Like, I don't need to hear myself talk. How can I help you and your audience? And when I'm talking to you, I'm not thinking about how many views this is going to get or anything else. Like, how can I best bring as much value to you as possible? And that's the only intent. So when I'm making content, I'm making something that I hopefully love. Like, if I don't love it, we're not going to do it. That also brings value to the audience. And in that combination is what ends up sticking. Like, if I love it and it's not working, okay, this isn't just a hobby for me. Like, this is a business, so it's got to yield something. And if the audience loves it, but I don't love it, I'm going to quit on that pretty quickly. And so it's that combination. So my should would be, how can I serve? I want to feel like what I do matters to somebody else. I want to feel like I'm having an impact. The work how many 7,000 videos or whatever, those are only the public ones, right? Not the thousands of unlisted ones. And then our Spanish channel and our Russian channel, if I'm putting this work in, I want it to make a difference to somebody. And so that's the intent. That's what I'm supposed to do. What is somebody else supposed to do? I don't know. I've tried to make that a trigger word for me, where, especially for non-achievers, it's a problem that I try to catch myself on, because if you tell somebody what they're supposed to do, an average person, like, that just puts up defenses already. Where if I told it to you, Kevin, you're supposed to do this, man, you'd be like, okay, got it, next. Yeah. But that is a big stumbling block for a lot of people. So if I catch it, I'll like go back and say it again, supposed to, it's like, and I invite you or whatever. Because the language, that you use can then close people off or open them up. So supposed to do collectively, I have no idea. Like, go make the thing that helps you achieve your objective, I guess. Right? Like when you asked me about the, should you go on 700 podcasts versus 200 or whatever? How important is it to go, well, I don't know, what's your goal? And what's the opportunity cost? What else are you going to do with that time? Because it might be really helpful and the best thing, and it might, like, maybe you should stop.
So you spoke to a point that I'm actually struggling with right now.
Okay.
I have a deep.
This is where, like, we should have started, right?
I know, but I'm
like, come on, Kevin.
I wanted to make
this is where we
sure
should start.
if there was YouTube stuff for the audience. Sure, you know me. I could sit down and talk deep all day.
Yeah.
I am deathly afraid of disappointing or offending people. And when I say deathly afraid, like, it keeps me up at night. I'm not kidding.
Yep.
Do you have any experience with that?
Tons.
What is your? I told Alan.
I can always make it up to them.
Okay, go deeper.
This is what gets me over the hump.
Please.
I can make it up to them. So, like, this is a thing that would prevent me from taking action because you calculate every scenario, and, like, there's always a scenario where it doesn't end well.
Yes.
And then that's a 2% scenario that then lets you, that halts you from taking action. And so I can make it up to them. If I offend somebody, I can make it up to them. I will make it up to them. Like if we refer you business on your new venture that we talked about, right? Okay, I'm gonna get up on my mastermind in 2 days and say, I think Kevin is one of the best interviewers that I've been on, and he pulls great questions out of people, and I would recommend that you use his services, right? Cool, so I'm gonna say that in 2 days. Like if somebody then hires you and says, dude, Kevin was like the worst. Guy didn't return my phone calls. He like made fun of me and called me a fat ass and made fun of me the whole time. And it's like, I'm hurt. Cool. First off, it's like, man, how did I miss the mark on Kevin? Like I thought my experience is totally different than what you just experienced with him. That would be devastating. I know that would be devastating for you if that were to happen. But whatever, you say that actually happened, I would make it up to that person. I would find a way, because that ultimately, even though you screwed up, like that's on me. I made that recommendation. I vouched for somebody that did not deliver. That's my fault. How can I help? I'll do videos with you. I'll send somebody to go and film you doing this, and I'll review it and critique it, because I'll just make it up to the person. And I'm confident that for any scenario, I could find a way to make it up to the person. And so that gives me the courage to then go and do the thing. Because whatever you're afraid of screwing up on, it's not fatal. Like they're not going to die in what we're doing. Yeah. You're not like a surgeon and like, oh no, maybe I should cut here, right? Like you're not killing them. So and as long as they're not dead, I can make it up to them. I just believe that, and it very rarely happens. But there are miscommunications and misunderstandings, and sometimes things happen. Okay, cool. Like we'll make it up to you.
Do you have any anonymous examples of something like that? Somebody reached out, offended, and how it went? Upset, offended, angry, whatever it may be.
I mean, probably tons. Nothing major, but what can I come up with? Early on in our Movie Makers program, one of our sales guys oversold, like made promises that were not true. Not from being a bad guy, just maybe we miscommunicated. It was like, but he made promises that and I couldn't keep that promise. What he had pitched, I couldn't do. Like normally, if Alex helps me run this place, made some kind of commitment that involved me, I'm going to do it. I'm going to let him know after and be pissed. But like, if he said that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, right? And we're going to have words afterwards, right? Just saying it because Alex is in the room, right? I've been roped into things that's like, this is not what we do, but I will try to back up my guys as much as possible because you're representing the brand, and fine, we'll find a way to do it. But he made some commitments that like, we can't do that. Right. There's no way to do that. And so I don't want anybody leaving being unhappy. So we need to find something else. Like what else could we do to help this person leave happy? They may not be like ecstatic, but a lot of times, if you take a negative scenario and you show that you're doing your best to try to turn it around, Like, it wasn't a malicious thing that happened, a miscommunication, maybe an overhype, overzealous, whatever. You say, hey, first off, we apologize. Like, that was a mistake. That shouldn't have happened. And we're going to figure out, like, already just saying sorry already makes, because most people just fight it.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible. How can we, but what was promised, like, I can't do that. So what else can I do that can help you? And for different people, it might be completely different things. But I will not rest until, like, that is solved, because that will keep me up at night.
Same.
But most of the things that keep you up at night are what ifs, as opposed to, like, what happened. And so I'll just default to knowing I could make it up to them. If you're here and I promise something, and then, oh, we're going to do an interview? Sorry, Kevin, like, we're not doing an interview. I don't know where you thought that idea from. You're like, dude, I came here, WTF, what's happening? It's like next month, not this month. Like, oh, we sent you the wrong dates, dude, right? Like, that, maybe that happens. It's not bad intent. And maybe we're not as close, but I would figure it out. Like, whether we're paying for your flight back here, whether, like, hey, what do you need help with? You need help with your YouTube channel, you need help with your podcast. So at the point where it becomes a story of how much we've kind of recovered the situation. And as long as you're not dead, I can make it up to you, right? Like, if you died, then that's a problem. Like, then I don't know but that's never happened to me yet. That really just helps me. Like, anybody you're afraid of offending, a client, a team member, whatever, you're doing your best.
I think it's usually people I don't know. It's usually people I don't know and I'm most likely never going to speak to. It's the person that...
But like who? What scenario?
I say something on the podcast. I have a strong opinion of something that just somebody's...
Like what?
I don't know. Most people will never achieve the level of success they desire because they're not willing to put in the level of effort required.
Okay.
But I understand if I heard that at the beginning, I would have been like, screw you, dude. Like, you don't know how much work I'm willing to do.
But so you're afraid of a random comment on the YouTube video?
100%.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different. I mean...
100%. And letting people down, of course. You act like me, so not you act, but tomorrow or Friday, I care more about what people think than what I think of what I'm presenting.
Of course. Well, you're going to hear yourself talk? That's not that valuable.
Right. But I think some people are like, well, I'm just proud of myself for the way I did it. With me, I don't care about how I feel. I want everybody else to be impressed. I want to make sure I'm adding value. So yeah, it's that comment of like, this is the biggest waste of time ever of all time. Like YouTube Shorts, we get that all the time. Usually it's Alan, his content, which helps me.
Good, yeah, Alan, man.
But still, that's the thing that is controlling me more than I'd like to admit.
Then that's just, and like, hey, awesome, thank you for sharing. I mean, that's what's my intent. Like, as much as my channel is believe in positivity, we'll still get hater comments.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, my intent is to serve. We'll respond to a lot of comments, just like sending lots of love is a default answer. That part of random strangers is just your intent was to be positive and move on. I'm not so worried about independent comments because that'll just, maybe you just grow thicker skin.
Maybe.
You know, at the beginning I was impacted a lot, but I realized the highlight of their day is to come and leave a negative comment on your video. How much pain have to they be in? And I just end up having, not like feel bad for them, like what a loser to come here, just empathy. It's like, okay. When you are in pain, like you've had moments where you're in pain, stressed out of your mind, not sleeping, did you show up as your best self?
No.
Were you nice to the barista at Starbucks that day? It's like, doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Right.
You just like max out stressed. Cool. Like that's most people, man, in a lot of days. And they're coming and watching your video. And so you say something that triggers them. No ill intent on your part. And so that's gonna happen every now and then. I just feel empathy for them. That hasn't been as crippling for me as like, I'm gonna disappoint a human.
Yeah. I deal with it all, unfortunately.
No, but it's normal because you care. Yeah. And it's a superpower in that's why people love working with you, because you prepare and you care and you're trying to bring as much value as possible. And so like, don't stop doing that, which you won't. But don't let it go so max that then you don't do anything.
Yeah. As a content creator, how do you balance the creative that you are and then like the scientist part where you're split testing thumbnail and all that. How does somebody that's by themselves get to the point where they're working on both sides of the road, so to speak?
I'm a creator at heart that likes to dance with the data. So like I won't let the data dictate what I do, but I respect it tremendously. Just like this setup, right? Like all the camera and the gears and lights, everything. I respect the effort and the gear and the talent, but it's not gonna dictate. Like if I didn't want to do it, I'm not doing it. If you're only playing to the data or the algorithm, you're gonna burn out. You won't get 7,000 whatever videos in. You're just gonna stop. When people say like love what you do, it's the actual process of the making of the thing that you have to love, and then it has to make sense for the market. So picking between the two, it's still heart first. Try to respect the data as much as possible. And if you're like purely artistic and have zero mind for math or anything else, and that could be, I need help. I need to find somebody who can help me do these things. It's like you need to figure out how to balance your bank account and like not run out of money at the end of the month, right? And I think you got to learn some basic financial lessons. So these are some of the basics of living in a creator economy. If you spend zero time on your thumbnail or title or intro, and you spend zero time looking at your retention data at all, it's going to be a problem. But I see a lot of that as actually extensions of being creativity. Like it's being creative. Like the thumbnail is still, it's still creative. You can inject your creativity into anything. So the data might tell you your intro sucks. Okay, but it doesn't tell you what to do.
Right.
It just says that what you are doing doesn't work. So what do? I don't know. What would be fun? Figure out a more creative intro. I've learned to dance with it. It's not my default.
Yeah.
But I've learned to dance with it.
I just wanted to take a quick second and give a shout out and a huge thank you to Next Level Podcasting Solutions, Kevin and his team. They have been incredible to work with, very flexible, on the spot with any questions that I have or any concerns that I have. When I first started out my podcast, I was doing everything on my own. I have no editing background. I have no podcasting background. I knew nothing about it. And so I was bootstrapping all of this myself while I was still trying to take on my role as a full-time mom. And once I met up with Kevin and we had these discussions and I got on board with adding an editing team, oh my goodness, it just lifted this weight off of me. It lifted my time that I was spending doing my editing. And in the beginning, full transparency, when I was editing just my individual recordings, it was a little more manageable, not super manageable. And then when I started doing my interviews for the podcast, it was hours upon hours of me doing the editing that didn't include any of the promotional material that I am now getting from Kevin and his team. It wouldn't have been sustainable. I would not have been able to keep up with that. So I recommend Kevin and his team. They have done wonderful work in helping me grow my podcast. I have really enjoyed working with the editing team, and it definitely feels like more of a team environment versus me hiring them to do a specific job. I mean, we all work collaboratively on the projects that I have, and I have these crazy ideas sometimes, and they come up with a solution to fit my needs. I can't recommend them enough. I've really enjoyed working with them. Kevin and the Next Level Podcasting Solutions, thank you so much for the work that you have done in the past and are continuing to do for me. I'm growing this community and growing this platform with a beautiful team that is working for me and with me to see my vision and help that come to life. So thank you again so much. I really appreciate you guys.
So you're somebody who I would say is really front-facing in terms of you talk to a lot of different people. You comment back, you or the team, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. Is that something you love, even though you're an introvert, part one? And part two, how important do you think that is for a content creator? Because I'm very similar, where I want to get to every DM, I want to send videos, I want to send audios, because I think it's valuable. I think it's not scalable, but it's super valuable. I also love doing it. Is it beneficial for someone who isn't outgoing and want to send videos to people to do it?
So whenever I get hit with these like, how important is it question? Yes. It's like compared to what? right? It's still like, what's the opportunity? You're going to spend an hour doing that. Cool. What's the opportunity cost of that time? What else would you be doing with that hour? If it's badminton, then yeah, you're watching Netflix for sure. It's easy. If it's making more content, it's like, how do you win? I love trying to create community. I want every comment answered. It's not possible at a certain scale.
Yes.
Like, I could spend all day responding to comments and still not get to every comment. So it's physically not possible at some point. Where most people, what they do is, okay, well, I'm only gonna respond to the comments in the first hour of the video being live, or they set some arbitrary rule about when they're gonna do it, or not do it at all because you just get overwhelmed. I've always treated it like a business. So at the beginning, if you're selling flowers on a street corner, you're doing everything. You're sourcing the flowers, you're talking to the customers, you're accepting payment, whatever. At the beginning, I was getting like a comment a week. It's super easy, right? I mean, it's like think about the problems we're talking about here. Like, I have so many comments coming in that I don't have time, right? It's a great problem to have if you're doing something well. But flower guy in the corner then goes starts a flower shop. But does she have to open the store every day? Does she have to answer every phone call? Does she have to respond to every client coming in? It's like, you hire people. You hire a team. In any business, you hire a team. So I hire a team. Like in any other company, if you have customers who are talking to you, sending emails, calling, you have somebody on the team who's responding, right? So just hire somebody. And so I hired people, and they respond as themselves. So it's from our account, but it'll say their name at the end, so it's not me. And then they save the comments that I need to see. So we just have some rules in place, but like, I like seeing the negative ones, like the feedback ones. If it's like, great video, Evan, amazing. Hey, thank you. It's like, I don't respond to every single video. Like, it's just too many comments. But the feedback ones, or if it's a friend or somebody we know or whatever, the personal touch. And I'll still get in there and do random things anyway. Like the video DM I sent you from the airport, or the bathroom, or it wasn't the bathroom. No, grocery store. I don't think I've ever sent one from the bathroom. That would be wrong. I don't know why I responded to you. Whenever I was on, I responded to somebody, see your comment, cool, let's send a video back. It's not thinking too much about, because in the overthinking, you just don't get stuff done. So is community important? Yeah, but there's a lot of big podcasters who respond to 0 comments. You know, I was sitting with Ryan Holiday in New York, and he was promoting his new book. And also then like writing the next one. He's just like a beast of a author writing. And I was in New York. I forget why I was in New York. And we both knew that we were in New York. So he's like, hey, meet up. You want to meet up for breakfast? And so we met at his hotel and breakfast. And so we made some content together. And then he's like, well, what's the rest of your day? I'm going to meet up some fans after. And then one of the guys from my channel credited my videos with blowing up his real estate business, so he wants to take me to lunch at like this fancy place. Like, okay, cool. And in the afternoon, we're gonna do like a Starbucks meetup and meet up with other fans, and then I'm gonna go home. And then he's like, well, that sounds exhausting. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm gonna go and write. Like, oh, well, that sounds exhausting, right? It's like, I'm in New York. I don't wanna just sit there and write. It's so like, but he's awesome, and he's super successful, and he's built a giant business. And so it's like, there's no one way to win. What is your magic? So if you suck at talking to people and you don't care about community at all and you don't want to make videos, respond to people, you don't have to. But what else are you doing with the time that's going to help you build and grow your business? There's no one way to do it, but there's a one way for you that you kind of got to figure out and navigate. So I like doing meetups in cities and connecting with people when I'm traveling. ROI-wise, it's like probably doesn't make sense. I'm not selling anything, why spend an extra 3 hours doing this? And Nina usually has to like pull me away because we're late to go somewhere, right? It's probably ROI-wise doesn't make any sense. But a lot of stuff I do doesn't make sense. Like writing back to you doesn't make sense. And yet now here we are, however many years later, great interviews, doing some work together. It's like, I didn't calculate that in my head. It's just, okay, whatever you said made me want to write back, and here it is, send, go. I think people stress out over having to find the perfect way.
Yeah.
And they're just afraid, and it's imposter syndrome, and like, I need to get all my ducks in a row before I do anything, where part of the magic is like, you'll learn as you start building and creating and getting your first episodes out. So the podcast idea, I had a couple year stint with Mark, the guy who did my first video. And I'm on my tour, 2019, same tour that we talked. And I'm driving through this desert in Texas, trying to get to New Mexico. It's giant, like desert, just nothing, which we don't see in Canada. So it was like, I was like, wow. And I get this idea of like, I should start a podcast with Mark. Where does it come from? I have no idea. I don't like podcasts. I don't listen to a single podcast. I'm a video guy. Like, audio only is the worst. I'd rather read a book. Like, I listen to 0 podcasts. Nothing. Because I have to focus so hard to just listen to audio only. And here I am thinking about this idea for a podcast with Mark. Okay. Nina, we need to get Mark on the call, like right now. And she's used to this by now. Okay, great. So I get Mark on the call. We're calling Mark. We're going to start a podcast. Yeah, man, I've been so waiting to start a podcast. This is great. I'll get everything lined up. So when are you back? You're back in like another 60 days. When you're back, I'll get it all lined up. We know what we're doing. Like, Mark, 60 days. We're not waiting 60 days to start this podcast. Well, when do you want to start it? Dude, tonight. Like, I'm going to get to New Mexico. We're going to get to Albuquerque. I don't know what figure out where, get online, and we're gonna make our first episode. Like, what are we gonna talk about? I don't know, Mark. You have 3 hours to figure it out, and then we're gonna start our first episode. And that's literally what happens. Like, we got to the Airbnb, and I'm on my MacBook, like no professional mic or anything. And he's spent the last 3 hours just kind of thinking about, and he's like perfectionist and loves seeing like everything great. Like, we still did an episode, I think, every week through my tour, and then when we came back. But it started that night, and I told him, dude, if we don't do the first episode tonight, like, we're not doing it. So it's either happening in 3 hours when I get to Albuquerque in my Airbnb, or we're just not doing it. Because the energy's gone. And so I think the ideas that come to you when you're feeling bold are actually the best ones for you, and to serve them, you need to take immediate action on it, even if it's imperfect. And was that our best podcast? No. Like, the audio wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. There's probably background noises because I'm in an Airbnb as, like Danny and Nina are like unpacking and getting things going. And Mark wasn't ready, and I was just showing up. But if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have had 2 years of podcasts. And so who cares if the first episode sucked? It's actually better that the first episode sucks. When I talk to people who are launching podcasts or even in their business, like, well, what is your message to people? Be perfect? Like, is that the message you want your audience to hear? Like, be perfect? Well, but like, you're living it. So if your first episode is perfect, what does that teach people who are listening to you? That they can't start until they're perfect. So it's better for you to make mistakes and have crappy audio quality, and you stumble and vomit on your computer, or like whatever happens, right?
That might be
You're
good.
like, man, if Kevin like vomited all over his computer and fried his motherboard and like that was the podcast, I could do better than that.
Yeah, for sure. I always tell people, go back. Some people will say, I'm starting at the beginning. I say, just tread lightly. That's all, just tread lightly. A lot has changed in 1,700 episodes. Why did that podcast stop, you and Mark?
I think what podcast needs now is that it has to be culturally relevant in some way. So you have to be talking about something that is happening either in the news cycle or in your life that is interesting in the moment, where a lot of ours ended up becoming either me coaching Mark on something in his business, which was fun for a while, but it just became a coaching show, which I can do easily. Like, it doesn't need to be Mark every time. Or it just became too evergreeny kind of content, which I don't think fits well in the podcast format. Like, I think you just sitting there talking about habits and mindset back and forth as a discussion, I don't think actually does super well in podcast format. You have to find a way to take the evergreen thing and turn it into something that is culturally relevant right now. Both Mark and I are not really news junkies or like following what's in
Trends.
culture.
Yeah.
And I think right now you need something, or you have to have such a life that people want to follow along with, and you're telling great stories. Like, oh my God, last night Kevin at the thing, and I don't have an interesting enough life that it's an entertainment style brand of podcast. So that was basically, everything else was great. I mean, I love Mark. He's been a close friend for 15 years. He did all the work of the editing on the podcast side of things and uploading to wherever, and the thumbnails and descriptions and show notes and whatever. It just wasn't culturally relevant. And that would be, if I was going to do another podcast like that, that would be the criteria. Is like I need 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever people on who are bringing topics that are more culture relevant. If you're doing an interview style show is a little different.
Yeah.
But still, the topics you talk about have to be culturally relevant. But if it's you and a host and like you're going back and forth, if you're just talking about evergreen stuff, that's a hard podcast to get off the ground.
I was telling you that Alan and I, a lot of it is stories. So like this trip, these 5 days or whatever it is, I'll come up with 15 episodes based on what we talked about and the experiences and all that. So
it is more lifestyle. Then people have to care enough about you.
Yeah.
And people don't care enough about my lifestyle, or like I'm not doing a good enough job in sharing it. If I had a creative director who's like, hey, I'm going to film you doing this and turn it into content, I'm sure there's something I'm doing in the way I'm seeing or thinking that could be helpful for people. Yeah. But for me on my own to talk about stuff, I don't know what to say because it's just my life. I don't think it's that. I mean, it's just what I do. It's not, other people might look, that's insane. So I need the person like pull that out of me.
Yeah.
But I don't really also have as much of an interest in just talking about myself and what I did this weekend and what I'm doing next week. Like I think I would get bored pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But in any case, whether it's about you and your life or about something that's happening in culture, if you don't have something that is injecting new from your evergreen ideas and methodology, then I don't think you have a successful podcast in 2024.
This is a really good example, this chat we're having about storytelling, because almost every single one of your points has had a really great story that goes with it. What, I don't want to say advice, in your opinion, what makes a really good story? And how does that story help a lesson ultimately land?
I don't know that I'm particularly expert at it. One thing I've been trying to do more is inject story into things. And that's something I pulled from Steve Jobs. Because when you look at how he answers questions, this is also like the reading between the lines. He never explains how to be like Steve Jobs. Here are the 10 things to do to be like Steve Jobs. But if he gets asked a question, a lot of times he just answers with a story. And in the story, you see yourself. Like, huh. And so I'm consciously trying to do a better job of injecting story into my answer. And even when I lead a movie maker session or any of my programs, trying to lead with some kind of story. I find it hard because I don't connect as much to story personally. I'd rather you tell me what to do. I don't care as much about your story. Like, cool, you went through that. What do I do, Kevin? Tell me what to do. But I'm weird. That's not most people. So, and my goal is to help most people.
Right.
So I need to learn a skill that doesn't work on me as much. And so it's hard. I don't necessarily know. I think if I was to say, like, there's so many storytelling architectures and frameworks, I just try to pick something that I'm emotionally connected to. Because if you're telling a story and you're not emotionally connected to it, it's not going to work. Like, the right words and the right story, just you need to be emotionally connected to it in some way. And that's what I'll try to search for. So I don't know what stories I've told, but I'm consciously trying to build the muscle where I get asked a question. There's been moments where, like, I've told myself every question I get asked, I need a story. I don't always remember to do it. Yeah. But it's like any muscle that you're working, you get better at it the more you do. Right now, honestly, I'm just trying to remember to do it. And I'm definitely not thinking like, okay, villain, mentor, crossing a chasm, whatever all of the story arc paths are. But I think the thing that carries is enthusiasm. Like the fact that you care about it, other people will care about it. We have a sales team. We got 10 people or whatever on our sales team. And they all have all the sales, the lingo and terminology and the 15 closes and it's great to teach that. I don't know any of that stuff, and it's not how I sell at all. Well, how do you sell it? Well, because I'm excited. And like people want that. And so, oh yeah, you're using this close. Cool. I don't know. I'm not great with following structure, but most people are. And so how I design it, like we have Steve on our sales team, who's our sales manager, and he's so great. I look at Steve operate, like, man, this guy is awesome. He cares about people. He knows how to answer the questions. He gives them like the specific feedback to get better. He doesn't let people off the hook. He pushes them. It's like such a great combination. And he thinks in these frameworks that I don't understand. Because if they ask me the question, it takes me a long time to train somebody. Because they have to learn by being around me and learn through osmosis, because I don't have the models to give them. Be like, dude, just like care more. Which isn't a great, and eventually you get it, but it's slow. And Steve can train people up so much faster. So it's the recognition that most people are not like me, and I am constantly trying to do a better job of being able to reach most people, because that's my mission. I'm not only trying to hit this narrow group, I'm trying to hit the world. So storytelling is a huge part of it, and I need to keep getting better at it. But thank you for the compliment.
You're very welcome. It'd be a simple handbook. Feel the energy, right?
Yeah.
Feel the energy and just be more excited. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, when I was training Alex to tell better stories, a good practice is like Instagram.
Yes.
And the tip I would give is anytime you feel emotionally connected to something, say it, film. Don't wait until next week to try to recall. You'll say better words, but they'll have no emotion because you're trying to recall them, and then it falls flat. And it's the same for me of like trying to memorize lines or memorize a script. It's the best words, but it's delivered with poor energy, and so then it doesn't land. That, in terms of overcoming letting people down, trusting that I will pull magic out of this interview, has led to much better content than me memorizing like set questions and stressing out. So it's been a long evolution. Like most of the stuff I've learned has been just by tons of effort. And if you hit your head against the wall enough times, the wall, you die or the wall breaks, right? It's like eventually the wall breaks. But it's like, man, you can just walk around. Like there's faster ways. So I'm still trying to, anytime I learn something, try to help other people not hit their head against the wall as much. But the storytelling, I don't know that I have a great model or framework apart from like just actually care about the thing, And then maybe that's simpler. Like, what are great interview questions? Actually care about the guests in front of you. Actually care about who you bring on. Actually be curious about them. Because then I think that solves a lot of the frameworks where it's like, lead with this question, but like if the energy is not there, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah. What else are you consciously working on as a content creator, entrepreneur, speaker, coach? Like what's on your mind of improvement?
Well, like lots of micro things, moving more to the who side of things. So like having Steve help with the sales side, he's building it way faster than I could. He's building it differently than I could. And in sales calls, I have to watch out not to overstep him.
Right.
Because I don't want to mess up the sales team. Now, I feel in my heart that give me enough time with somebody and like I'll turn them into somebody who can sell my thing better. But I don't have the time to do that, and he's like scaling it up. And I have to watch out not to interrupt too much because it might actually mess up the process. If I'm telling them to do something and like they're working on something else, even if I feel like I'm right, that's how I would coach it. And I'm talking to them as a group once a week max, where he's in there like every day. So it's better to follow his process, which is working, than for me to interject. And so I'm just trying to sprinkle magic wherever I can and like try not to get in the weeds. Same thing with Nina. When I come in and she has her process, I mostly just mess it up. And when I'm trying to help, where it's like, I shouldn't even be doing any of this stuff. Just where can we use some creativity? So trying to bring on more who's. So we have, when we talk about the mastermind, we got 63 people head count now. And like, how do we get to 600? And who are the roles that I need to bring on to get there to let me come in and just do Evan magic and like not mess up the other stuff?
This is something you've given me, and I know we have a couple minutes left. You said to me, I want to help just do Kevin magic. And you talked about Evan magic. Yep. How does somebody find their own unique flavor of magic? How do you know when you found it?
I think we have these moments like, oh wow, that really worked. Oprah, I remember when she talked about when she first did her episode, she said that it felt like breathing for the first time. Like she finished the first episode and was like, man, I feel like I'm breathing. So that, and like it doesn't always make sense. Sometimes we may need people to tell us, what we're great at. The problem is you're excellent at like a couple things, like world class and potential to be world class, right? If you just worked even harder on these things. And then really good at a bunch of other stuff, and then just like average, but you'll cover for the average by working hard. So it looks like you're excellent at a lot of things, but you're not. You're just grinding and working hard. And so it's like, how do you separate the wheat from the chaff? It's, well, no. You got to stop doing all the stuff that even you're getting results with, because you could be world class at these two things, but you're doing too much other crap to even focus on the things that you could be great at. And so it's usually like these little minor moments that like you probably spend 1% of your time on the things that are like actually potentially great, and 99% on things that still, it's not like you're just playing games all day. It's moving the business, but that's the trap. Like good is the enemy of great. You still do the good stuff. If it was crap, you would stop. But you're getting good at it. So like video production, I shouldn't be doing video editing. I could be a good video editor, but it's not the use of my talents.
Last thing before we go.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works like this for you, but it does for me. Different things are on my mind at different times. And if somebody said to me, what's on your mind that you would share with blank audience today, what would it be? What is on your mind that if you were on a stage in front of 100,000 people right now, and they were all podcasters, speakers, entrepreneurs, coaches, thought leaders, YouTubers, that you would share with them?
Just start. Like if you're at the beginning, just start. Just start your show. Do it tonight. Go in the hallway and film your first episode on your phone with crazy background noises, and you don't know what you're going to say. And your first episode is, I'm going to start a podcast, and I don't even know what I'm talking about yet, but this is episode 1, and I can't wait to go. Post. There's your first episode, right? Just start. And for people who are further ahead, I'm already getting millions of downloads. Cool. Just start on now you're afraid. Now you're trapped by your past success, and like you're afraid to experiment and do new formats. Cool. Just start. Like just reduce the expectation that this thing is going to crush, and just start. And if it tanks, cool. Next.
I want to thank you. 2 things. One, for this. I appreciate it very much. But we have a saying, the closer you get to someone, the closer you get to the truth. The closer I've gotten to you, the more I've appreciated you as a human being and as a man and just as a human. So I just wanted to say thank you for everything you've done for us. And yeah, I'm grateful to know you.
Cool. Thank you, man.
You're very welcome.